When you select the text tool, it will pop up the text tool property bar. If you change the font to something different before clicking anywhere else, it will ask you to change the document defaults. If you want it to be the default for artistic text, you would check that checkbox and click OK. Same thing for if you want to change the font size or the justification, you would change those as well. So if you want a 2-inch font size as your default, you would change that, and that becomes your default for new documents. Every document has a default, and so any document that you had saved previously would maintain its default, but any new one would have this default as long as after you change it, you say save settings as default. In order to do that with the mobile workspace, you actually have to right-click, say menu bar, then go to Tools and say Save Setting as Default, and then save it. We hide the menu bar most of the times, but you can get to it there if you need to. In order to create artistic text, you just click wherever you want to start typing and type in the date. Because I have it justified on center, it's going to go from where I clicked in either direction. If I were to make a change now to the font, it wouldn't do anything until I started typing again. So it only changes whatever comes after your cursor. If I want to change the existing text, I can click and swipe and it will highlight it blue, and then I can change that as well. Going back to the pick tool, I'm able to move that text wherever I want. When you're typing text, if you hit enter, it will go to a new line. The line spacing is based off of a percentage of the height of this letter. And if you've got a font like the Monument Lettering Center fonts that have open type alternates, you can select or highlight like this, and if it had an alternate, you would be able to see that. None of these happen to do that, so I'll type in some new text here, and I'll just say something like that. This gives you an alternate, so you get a little caret underneath it. You can click on that and then switch from that quote to a stylistic alternate. Certain fonts have alternate glyphs, different W's, different ampersands, that sort of stuff. When typing text like dates, you can do 1910 to 2010, and it will give you a regular dash there. If you were to do 2 dashes and then a space, it will switch to a stylized dash. And if you were to do 3 dashes and a space, it would switch to an even longer dash. Many of the fonts also have dashes that are created with the Monument Lettering Center ones. They're created with the less than and greater than symbol with dashes in between. So you can create it as long as you want or as short as you want. I guess it doesn't go as long as you want, but there are different sizes there. If we switched back to the MD Roman font and did it there, you would need to use a bracket, dashes, and then an ending bracket, or shift bracket, ending shift bracket in order for those to be slanted. With the Monument Lettering Center ones, if we look at them in the wireframe view, so if we do this with a bunch of dashes, When we switch to wireframe, you'll see that it's actually one continuous glyph, whereas with the MD Roman ones, they are actually separate pieces. So you would want to weld those first. You just hit W on the keyboard with it selected and it will weld that. However, when you weld it, it then changes that so that it's not text anymore. It's converting it to curves. Another kind of text is called paragraph text. So if we were to take the text tool again, and this time instead of just clicking, if we click and drag, it will build a box. And then we could type in some text here. You still see this box around it. However, you can do things like force justify to get it to fit inside that box. Paragraph text is meant more for brochures and that sort of stuff, or if you're really trying to fit text inside a shape. So for the most part, we would stay away from paragraph text for monument use. If you do end up making paragraph text by accident and you see the box around it, you can right click and just say convert to artistic text, and it'll switch it back to artistic text for you. The same thing applies if you have artistic and you really want it to be paragraph. You can right click on it and say convert to paragraph text. One great use of paragraph text in monuments is that you're able to create columns of text. So if you were doing a war memorial, for instance, something like that where you have a lot of names, then it's a good use of paragraph text there. If you had a shape, let's say an ellipse like this, you can use the text tool to come over, and as soon as you get to the edge of that shape, the cursor will change from the letter A to that squiggly line. And if you click right, then you can type in and it will fit the text to that path. When you click on it with the pick tool, then you can move it around that path, move it in and out. If you move it over on center, it'll give you a red mark showing that you're on center. While you're in this mode, you can switch to the shape tool and adjust spacing just by clicking and dragging to the right or to the left. Until it's broken apart, that text becomes part of this curve. So if you were to change the curve, it's going to change that text as well. So we'll just undo that. If we break this apart, Control K to break it apart. If you come in, instead of clicking on the line, if you click inside the line, the cursor is going to change again to a rectangle. And if you click there, then it actually turns this into paragraph text, with the paragraph being the size of the oval. With paragraph text that's in a frame, because the frame is really grouped in, or because the text is grouped inside of this frame, if you look at it in the objects docker, you'll see that there's the little caret there showing the paragraph text inside of it. So if you want to change the font, in order to get to that text, you hold Control to click on it, and that will dig inside of that group then so that you can change the font. We'll go ahead and delete this. In addition to the settings for text being on the property bar, if you click on this button here, it'll edit the properties over here in the Docker. The Docker has more options, so it's got options for character spacing as a number instead of doing it based on your shape tool, word spacing, etc. If you want to edit existing text that's not selected, you can take the text tool and move over the top of your text, and it'll change again from this A to this cursor, and wherever you click, that's where it's going to put your cursor at. So if we click over here, it'll move it to here. If you want to select everything, you start at the beginning and swipe, or you can start at the end and swipe. Or what I do most often is I'll just click anywhere inside of it and hit Control A, and that will then select all inside of that object.